You know, I was there. Yeah. Oh, okay. Did they go to Dallas? Wasn't anyone on the ferry I knew from that area?
He was a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it was him. No, I didn't think it was him.
And it should have been John Bertram.
Oh yeah, John and I, we were in the same class. We went to Maui with them a couple of years ago, and they had a friend who was staying there at the same time. We got together, and her name is Darcy. She didn't go to Davin, but she went to Sheldon with a bunch of kids that I grew up with at Davin. So Janice Britton, Deirdre Riley. And I wasn't invited. Oh, is she? Yeah. I think she's retired too. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm gonna pass around.
Absolutely. Where's your sitting at?
One of these guys over here.
I'll sing a song now. So,
Save the last minute.
First thing I want to do this afternoon before I start crying is to welcome you all. My name is Lyell Armitage. I am the second child born to Donnelly and Lyell. My lovely mother, Donnelly. Lyell was my dad, and it's his life today we're here to celebrate. My immediate family Dad's immediate family is here. My younger sister, Nancy, my older brother, Paul, and, as I said, my mother, Donnelly. Our extended family includes our better halves, Paul's wife, Julie, my beautiful wife, Linda, our two beautiful children, Emily and Noah. I see Emily, but Noah is there. Thank you. And Bristol and Grayson are here from Regina. They're the children of Mom and Dad's youngest son, my brother, your twin, Lindsay. So I'd like to also toss a shout out to all of those from distant places watching this service via live stream. I guess the camera would be here. Hello there. Particularly Yvonne and Jewel, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but I'm sure really wished they could. And we're certainly fortunate to have the technology to be able to do that. So we have a few speakers today who'll take the podium to offer their thoughts and share with you a few stories. I'll leave it to each of them to introduce themselves. That'll save some time. There'll also be a slideshow, which is predominantly arranged by this angel here, Nancy's partner, who has become like a brother to me. In fact, we greet each other simply as, "Hey, brother." So if he does that to any of you, you know you're part of the family. He has spent untold countless hours putting together this video presentation, lots of photos, some audio of my dad, and with some accompanying music by my very talented actual brother, Paul, who he recorded many years ago, the music he recorded several years ago. And in fact, you'll also be hearing some live music today from Paul and Lyndon, both very talented pianists. And I think that's what all this is for. There will also be an opportunity for any of you out there to take the podium after the scheduled speakers, if any of you had any thoughts you wish to share or any stories to tell. If it moves you, we'd love to hear it. Personally, I love hearing stories about my dad. Things I haven't known before. It means a lot to me. And it includes his grandchildren. If any of his grandchildren feel inclined to want to get up and say a few words, we'd really appreciate that. There's some refreshments coming later. There's some candy on the table, jujubes, and licorice all sorts. For any of you who knew Lyell well enough, like I did, you know that those were his favorite treats. He hoarded them in his closet, under his bed, under his pillow. But we've got them out on the table for you. No, they're not the old stale ones that he hid, but enjoy them nevertheless. So Dad would not have wanted a stuffy, overly ceremonial celebration of life, as you can tell, right? We're having a few laughs already. That's great. And I really appreciate the laughter. I don't get laughter where I live when I tell a joke. So thank you. Except for Dad. Dad laughed at every joke I ever told, right? So when I'm not funny, I just know he's laughing, and that's all that matters. So he wanted it, he wouldn't want an overly ceremonial celebration, like a stuffy kind of a celebration, but he still would have wanted us to keep him as the center of attention. And he'd be the first to admit that. So keep it light, try not to embellish too much. Don't talk longer than you're allowed, which is what he would have told me. In fact, he would often tap his wristwatch reminding me that I'm taking too long, and I'm already taking too long. Everyone who knew him knew his sense of humor, his love of laughter, storytelling, and pancakes. Some of my favorite memories of Dad are him and I sitting alone making each other laugh over breakfast, either after a round of golf, a game of tennis, or a regular Thursday morning hockey, or Saturday morning meetings. And this was a regular occurrence for us over many years, so I really have that to cherish. He was more than just my dad. He was my best friend, and someone I admired, looked up to immensely. And when we played hockey together, he passed me the puck, which wasn't always the case. We had an obsession together that we shared of golf, and I remember one occasion where Nancy and I and Dad, we left Regina and we drove up to our summer place at Waskesiu, which is about a 5.5-hour drive, and we played as many holes of golf in a day and a half that we could, and so 54 holes of golf in 36 hours, I mean, that's epic, right? So he loved doing that, and I loved being with him when we were together doing that sort of thing. His passing left us many gifts, particularly the coming together of family, certainly one of them. Losing Dad has made me come to realize that Mom, Nancy, and Paul are more precious to me than ever. And so I have him to thank for that. And to those in attendance, please take some time at some point during the ceremony to introduce yourself to my mother, Donnelly. She would love to thank you personally for being here, and it really means the world to the family. So we're here to celebrate the life of a legend, which is what he was to me and always will be. And I'm not just saying that because I know he's listening. With the cooperation of my mother, he gave me life. His contribution was small, but nevertheless important. But not only did he give me life, he saved my life. And as many of you here know, he was an alcoholic, as am I. He found the program of AA in 1960. I was 3 months old. And for a lot of people with this disease, they're not ready for help until they hit a bottom, when things get really bad. And I honestly think that at 3 months of age, my incessant demand for attention, expressed vociferously by screaming at the top of my lungs, may have significantly contributed to Dad hitting his bottom. So you're all very welcome. Boiled down to its essence, AA is as follows. You admit you have a problem. You clean house. You work on yourself, recognize and tackle your character defects in an effort to overcome them, and then you help other alcoholics. It's really that simple. And this became a central theme throughout the rest of his life, helping others. So naturally, at a point when I hit my bottom, I came to him for help. And that was quite a few years ago. So the AA program saved his life and mine, and the lives of many others, some of whom you will hear from later today. Addiction is a family disease, and ours was no exception. Our family is ripe with it. Not only did Dad suffer from the disease, both his parents did as well, and so too did my mom's father, along with other members from her side of the family. And it took the life of our brother Lindsay back in 2008 at the age of 46, a disease he struggled with throughout most of his life. Dad's childhood growing up was dysfunctional. Both parents were alcoholic. His mother would suffer physical and emotional abuse at the hands of her husband whenever they drank. On January 1st, 1947, he was 10. He came home from school and was told by his mother that his father had died in a car accident earlier that afternoon. His first thought was relief. The fighting and the violence had ended, and they were safe. The next day, he was baptized. And I didn't know this until I read the book he's written, which is at the front of the altar here. But he describes that on January 2nd, 1947, being baptized by the same minister who oversaw the funeral of his father. And baptism signifies a change or renewal from an old way of life to a new way of life. And the changes that followed for him were profound. His older brother, Chuck, who was 11 years his senior, became the family father figure. And he decided it would be best to move Dad and their mom to Regina to live with him, where it was more financially feasible. And that's what happened. So he is now in Regina, a young guy in a new school, made new friends, began a new life. He entered high school at Central Collegiate in Regina, where he met the love of his life, Donnelly, my mom. He was naturally athletic. He made the senior football team as quarterback. He played center field on the senior boys baseball team and was playing on the senior boys hockey team, all at the age of 16. He played for several fastball teams in the A and B leagues throughout the city as well. He enjoyed playing on the B league teams more because the guys drank more beer than the older, married, and more responsible players on the A teams. While in high school, he entered a contest hosted by a local radio station, and because he placed so well, he was offered a radio announcer job in Flin Flon, Manitoba, which is what he did for 1 year. And because he loved sports, and it was only natural that he did a lot of sports casting. And during the slideshow that Lyndon has put together, you'll hear an excerpt from his radio days where he called the winning goal as he's doing the play-by-play for the 7-game series of the 1957 Memorial Cup in Regina at the ripe old age of 20. And that game was significant, that series was significant. Not only was it the first and only Memorial Cup that the Flin Flon Bombers won, but Scotty Bowman was the coach of the Ottawa Canadiens, and Orland Kurtenbach, who a lot of us remember as the first ever Canuck captain, assisted on a game-winning goal. So Dad had talent. He had no formal broadcast training. He was a natural. In the early 60s, he hosted his own morning radio show on the most popular radio station in Regina for many years. It was called Something for the Women. That was the name of the show. And I remember at the age of 3, 4 years of age, listening. Mom would turn the radio on in the kitchen, and I'd hear Dad, chatting. It was a talk show. So he would find a topic in the paper and throw it out there. People would call in, and he'd chat and be funny, and he had a real way with people. And so he was able he later worked in sales at McMillan Blodell in Regina, and then transferred to Vancouver in 1977 after getting the job in their employee assistance department. And so at that point in his life, he was kind of melding all of his AA recovery into his professional life. And so from that point on, not only was he doing this in his spare time, going to meetings and helping others with their recovery and with their addictions, but it was his job. And so, he was doing something he loved, something he really cared about. And there's so fortunate when someone can actually make a living at something they love doing, something they're called to do. He later went into business as a consultant in the field of addictions, worked at treatment centers and with many other private clients. And a while later, he was lured back to Regina and appointed by Government Order and Council to be the regional director for the Saskatchewan Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Commission. Later working with the Regina Health District over a period of 16 years, eventually retiring from there at age 65. And all of this was in pursuit of helping addicts to recover. He became a different person after finding the program. He learned how to be responsible, how to tell the truth, the importance of being honest with yourself. He was asked many times over the years to share his experience, strength, and hope at meetings with other members of the program, and without fail, he always introduced himself as, "Hi, my name is Lyell, and I'm an alcoholic." here today by the grace of God and the fellowship of AA. He was always an all or nothing sort of guy. He kind of took things to extreme, which is not uncommon amongst the AA types. He joined a club in the 70s whose goal it was to run 1,000 miles in 1 year. And imagine living in Regina in the midwinter when it's 20, 30, 40 below, and he's out there running 3 or 4 miles every day. Well, he ran 1,400 miles, which, in my opinion, is completely nuts. He was sometimes a joker and loved having a good story to tell. That must have been his motivation the day that he put my mom live on the radio while in labor with twins, without her knowledge, and said, "Hey, Donnelly, how's it going?" Yeah. Just another not-so-fond memory, right, Mom? You know, he also spoke about love. And as a kid, I remember hearing him speak at a meeting. I was so fortunate to be able to, hear him at roundups. And he was a bit of a celebrity in Regina. He was in the radio business. He was the youngest member ever in 1960 to join the program. And I recall him saying at a meeting once, he said, "Love is getting up in the middle of the night and getting your wife a glass of water." I thought, wow, okay. So, and I don't know why that stuck with me. Just ask Linda. He would also say the measure of how you're doing in the program isn't how many times you get asked to share or how many times you get pats on the back. It's whether you're any fun at home. And he was fun at home. He had an inherent sense of gratitude. At another meeting, I remember him saying that he said the same prayer 100 times a day. And that was simply thank you. And so, he wasn't thanking you or you or you. He was thanking his higher power. He was a big proponent of tough love. And if you don't know what that means, suffice it to say, there were several times he could be heard saying, "Why, yes, officer, let me tell you precisely where you can find my son Perry." So the book I mentioned is a copy of it here. It's called Lyell's Memorable Dates. And at first I thought it was a book about some old biddies who were kind of cute back in high school. But no, it's a journal with meaningful insights covering 78 years of his life, from his birth on September 8th, 1936 to 2014, thereabouts. And what a wonderful gift that is for us. When I read the book, I learned a lot about the man that I didn't know. But, one of the most remarkable things about the book was his honest assessment of his own character. And he spoke about himself in the third person. So I'm just going to read. He wrote this around the time he was 11 years of age. He didn't write it then, but he was reflecting that at age 11, it says, "Lyell's personality was that of a young person who wanted to be the center of attention. Talkative with a sense of humor, he tended to be a big-time, loudmouth, lying show-off. These attributes were noted on a number of report cards in public school." He admits in the book that as a young person, he was always striving to be the center of attention. And he would often say, "Never let the truth get in the way of a good story." He also admitted he loved to procrastinate. So there's a couple more things in the book I'm going to skip over, but there was, I discovered on my phone there was a recording I had made of a talk he had given at the 60th anniversary of the New Life group in Regina, where he joined when he first joined the program. he and I traveled to Regina and attended the meeting, and he gave this talk. And they permitted me to record it at my mother's request because she couldn't attend. But here are a couple of things that stood out to me when I listened to it back. This is what he said. Do all the things that the program says to us, and the amazing thing that happens is you get sober and you get happy and you get some peace of mind and a relationship with a power greater than yourself. And when you feel that good about yourself, you want to share that with other people. So anytime I'm asked to go and help someone, I'm filled with gratitude to be able to do that. As I developed a relationship with a power greater than myself, I've come to realize that that power is always here. It's always operating and functioning in our lives. We never know the influence we're going to have on other people. We never know. And that's why I think it's a good idea to try to do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joel, and I'm a friend of Lyell. The thing that's so nice today is we all know somebody in common. When I first met Lyell in 1982, I'm sure that he looked at me and went, "Yike! Who the heck is this guy?" See, I was in the ladies' fashion clothing business. So I had, before it was popular, like long hair with streaks and big gold jewelry and the odd gold tooth, and I'm sure like he looked at me and I was like somebody from outer space. And this is at his home, right? And I looked at him and I thought, how the hell did I ever agree to meet up with this square conservative guy? But neither of us flinched. And that's how it all began. I didn't know that day, excuse me, in 1982, that meeting with Lyell would dramatically change my life for the rest of my life. And that was 42 years ago. Firstly, I just want to say that it came to pass that I really loved Lyell. He was a real friend. A real friend. He was always available to me to share his experience, strength, and hope when I didn't know what to, excuse me, when I didn't know what to do. I could always turn to him. How am I doing so far? So I want you all to know that I really feel honored today to be able to publicly honor and tell you maybe a couple of stories about my friend Lyell. So Lyell had a great sense of humor. And I want to tell you just a quick little thing that I'll never forget. So to everybody here, you may think that this is a baseball cap for the LA Dodgers. It's not. This is the Lyell Armitage hat. He's really, whenever I would meet Lyell in the last number of years, I'd go, Lyell, baby! 'Cause he, and he'd go, Joel. That was sort of as outward as he ever got. His wit was usually short and to the point. I would tell him some long, drawn-out stories of my tale of woe. Then, in typical Lyell response, he would say something, Joel, lighten up. Joel, keep coming back. Everything you need or want to know, you'll hear at the meetings. For some reason, that was enough. It's just, he didn't have to say much. It was really his demeanor, the way he held himself, All right, I'm getting near the end. I've told this story several times, and many of you have heard it before. And I don't care. I like this story, and I'm going to tell it again. In the early days of my sobriety, Lyell suggested that I go to a recovery treatment center in Regina, Saskatchewan. Now, we're talking the dead of winter in February, right? So I looked at him, and I said, Regina? That's like a red china. Are you nuts? He didn't flinch. He stayed calm. So, I, in my infinite wisdom, says, don't they have a treatment center in Hawaii? I could go there and suntan at the same time as getting the treatment. But, to his credit, this actively alcoholic, social drinker, he didn't judge me, Anyway, in conclusion, the biggie for me although Lyell is no longer with us, every act of kindness that I'm able to do reminds me of Lyell. I think of him. He would say, do something nice for somebody every day. And if they find out, doesn't count. Lyell, and I believe in this, if you're listening, I love you, man. Thank you.
Well, I hoped I
I don't ad-lib a little bit, but when Lyell bought new golf clubs, I'm the guy that got the old set. And I'm still golfing today because of that. Who am I? Lyell was so good at remembering dates. For many years, we've been meeting every Tuesday at Hofstede's coffee shop. And if Lyell was here, he'd probably be able to tell me the date we got started. Our favorite seat was there next to the gas fireplace in the corner. It was the hot spot. He wrapped his hand in a blanket. He was comfortable, and I was roasted. He loved that heat. Usually just the two of us would meet. We talk about lots of stuff, usually lots of laughs, and I found out all about AA and that they love cake. They're always having cake. We laughed a lot, and we sometimes were sad, of course, and he might say, if it's not one thing, it's 6 others. We'd meet with friends sometimes, and strangers, and maybe just the people at the next table. Everyone was welcome. I thought of this song this week, Lean on Me. We all need somebody to lean on, to call when we need a friend. And Lyell was always just a call away. We shared lifetime stories, both happy and sad, a place where both of us found refuge and friendship. And I found a verse that I often refer to in Scripture from Joshua 1:9 that says, be strong and courageous. Don't be terrified or fearful. Don't be discouraged, for God is with you everywhere you go. We talked about putting our trust in Jesus and believing in him. We talked about heaven, and Lyell said he had a very good peace about heaven. He was ready. When I think about peace, I was reminded of this song we used to sing in our church, and it has 3 verses and a chorus. It says, once I thought I walked with Jesus, yet such changeful feelings had, sometimes trusting, sometimes doubting, sometimes joyful, sometimes sad. But he called me closer to him, bade my doubts and fears all cease, and when I had fully yielded, filled my soul with perfect peace. Now I'm trusting every moment, nothing less than can be enough, and my Savior hears me, bears me gently o'er the places once so rough. And the chorus was, oh, the peace my Savior gives, peace I never knew before, and my way has brighter grown since I've learned to trust him more. Another song comes to mind when I think about our coffee time together, and that is, just where he needs me, my Lord has placed me. Just where he needs me, there would I be. And since he found me, by love he's bound me to serve him joyfully. I found a definition of the word grief this week, just the other day. And it says, grief is really just love. It's all the love you want to give, but cannot. And when I say will I miss Lyell, I think of his 3-word answer that I loved. Very much so. Thank you.
I should have put this on paper. My name's John Garrow. I'm Lyle's nephew. My father, John, was Donnelly's brother. So I guess something just had occurred to me today when Perry was talking about that your dad would laugh at your jokes when you didn't get laughs at home. And what comes to mind is he just loved a good dad joke. And so I always appreciated that too, because it was kind of the same in my house. And we shared lots of good laughs about just silly things, bizarre things sometimes, but it was good. It was good. So I grew up in Calgary, and the Armitages lived in Regina, so different places, but we often saw them, not regularly, but during summer vacations or when we were traveling back to Calgary through Regina to visit relatives. Or even family reunions, and it was always a memorable time for me as a kid. And I guess what stood out for me is in that environment, I grew up in the era where children were to be seen and not heard, and so I grew up, I guess, fearing adults or experiencing adults with caution, but that wasn't my experience with my Uncle Lyell. He wasn't telling me what to do. He would offer, and I learned this later on, he would offer when the time was right, when I asked for input. And so, he was considerably older than me. He was one of the parents. He was kind of in the background, and my interest at the time was just being one of the kids and getting to know my cousins. And but I remember him being upbeat. Like he was upbeat, and so he wasn't the scary person that a lot of other adults were in my life. So then I moved into my awkward, rebellious teenage years, and Uncle Lyell was one of those people that was leading a life that was totally different than mine. And I was at the young age of 15, 16, and I was looking for a life of partying and various things. And he was leading a different life, and so although I saw he was a positive person, and I saw he had a positive influence in people's lives, he was a threat to me because he offered something that I had turned my back on, and so I just stayed away from him because he seemed to know something, but I'm not sure I was ready for it. And that was okay, and he never forced his views on me, which was amazing. And then as a young adult, I moved to Vancouver. I was trying to get away from my life in Calgary, and I was trying to escape myself, but I brought myself with me to Vancouver. And I moved to Vancouver for 7 years, went to university, and I was muddling through that impossible, inescapable alcoholic addiction that I was living, and in that process, I was in university, I think second or third year university, I asked for help. And my Uncle Lyell, my Aunt Donnelly, and my Armitage cousins were there to offer me help. And they offered me, an alternative to the way I was living. And, as threatening as it was, because it was a totally foreign way of life, and to hear my uncle, I remember going out the first night with my cousins and my Uncle Lyell after my first AA meeting, and he was saying things that just seemed really foreign to me, and he was talking to me. It was like it was a foreign language, but I felt at home. And most importantly, he told me that I was accepted, regardless of my past and regardless of what I thought about myself. And then as I moved into recovery, and I became serious about that way of life, and that there was a life that was infinitely more rewarding than what I was living. I was able to share that experience with my Uncle Lyell. You know, from someone that was, you know, a scary adult or in that group of scary adults, and someone that, you know, I was to be seen, not heard, to someone I could actually share my experience with, you know, the way I was living at the time. And there was acknowledgement of that, and there was no judgment, and that was incredible. He was always interested in others. He was receptive. He was positive. He liked to share his humor, especially about life and especially about himself. And for those who don't know, he liked to tell himself jokes. and I hope I get to that place where I can. And the one thing he taught me is to laugh about myself, because, you know, some of some of the things that go through my head make me laugh at times. And that's from a place where, when I was that young adult struggling, I couldn't laugh at myself. It was all very serious and troubling. He was one of those people that made the process of relationships a lot easier. I know that my wife Liz and my children Tim and Holly are here, and I know they feel the same way, and they've expressed the same thing to me. This morning I was reminded by Liz and Holly about the times Uncle Lyell made the trek by car from Regina to Vancouver or back the other way. And he'd, you know, bring friends with him. And he felt no hesitation about calling me and saying, can I stay at your place tonight? And you might have a couch for him to sleep on. And, you know, he didn't care. He was happy to come and visit and stay with us. And we were really fortunate for those times. And the way my daughter talked to me about it today, it was memorable for her. So, oh goodness. One of the highlights of my relationship with my Uncle Lyell was being invited on to share a trip with he and Perry in 2017 to Akron, Ohio, the birthplace of Alcoholics Anonymous. We had lots of laughs. It was a great weekend. I was like, just blew my mind that they would invite me along. Had a profound effect on my appreciation of the history of the way of life that I had adopted. And I was very fortunate to have shared that with them. When I learned of Uncle Lyell's passing, I was able to honestly share with my Aunt Donnelly and my cousins Paul, Perry, and Nancy that second to my father, my Uncle Lyell had a greater influence on me than any other male of that generation. I'm better for knowing him. Hopefully I can continue to live by his example. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, John. That was good. Welcome, everybody. It's really great to see all of you here today. Old friends, family. I've been kind of looking forward to this moment because I knew it would be just like a heartwarming experience. And it's a sad moment in our lives, and yet there's also a silver lining of grace, love, gratitude. And I'm just so profoundly grateful to my immediate family, cousins, extended family, other friends that have shown up today, musician friends I've known for a long time, Jim in the back there. Dad was a great inspiration to me in so many ways. And I think I kind of didn't realize how much he was until this last few months. I realized I'd sort of taken him a bit for granted over the years, recent years. But you know, when he fell ill in July, I just knew I had to spend as much time with him as I could. And And I don't regret it at all. It was a very magical, healing experience for me. And, you know, he ended up in the hospital quite a bit. He was in and out of the hospital for weeks on end the last few months. And it was a very challenging experience for all of us, my family, Nancy, all, you know, we were all there for him every day. We could spend as much time as we possibly could, because, you know, we all know our health system is struggling, and he didn't always get the kind of care that we would have hoped he would there. And so Nancy, she was an angel. I mean, she just was there every day, six hours a day. And but the thing that amazed me the most about Dad was his spirit. He never lost his sense of humor. And he was kind and uplifting and positive and lighthearted all the time. Now, he had moments where he would get a little bit annoyed because it was really challenging. But he would still be cracking a joke. Like he would say to me, "It's enough to make you enough to drive you to drink," you know. And of course, I didn't say, "Well, do you want me to go get you a six-pack?" But you know, I just, you know, in the last couple years, Perry, Nancy, and I, Lyndon, we'd often meet for breakfast after the Saturday morning meeting in New West, and I just sort of noticed in that last year he was there, and you know, me and Perry and the younger folks that are sitting at this group, 5 or 6 of us sitting at the table, we're doing most of the talking, and it just occurred to me one day, I said, you know, I'm going to try and include Dad a bit more in the conversation, because he'd often just sit and listen and not say much. And so I started remembering key moments in my early life growing up where Dad really impressed me and taught me important things that stayed with me and informed my own sense of what character and what honor and integrity mean. And so I just started saying, you know, Dad, you know, I remember once you sat me down when I was about 7 years old, and you taught me the law of karma. And you probably didn't call it that back then, but you basically said, you know, here's how it works, Paul. If you tell the truth and you do good things will happen. And if you don't tell the truth and don't do good things, it's going to be a rough ride. You know, and that really stayed with me. And there were other moments along the way where I remember we were sitting in a steam bath at the New West public pool. I don't remember how we ended up there. Yeah, I went swimming and he was there, maybe doing a workout or something. And I was dealing with a situation in my life at that time that was a bit perplexing to me. And he just offered this incredible insight and wisdom about it that really kind of blew me away, because I'd never really seen this side of Dad before, because he was not one to talk openly about this kind of stuff. And another big moment that had a huge impact on me was about maybe 6 months after I had gone to my first AA meeting when I was 21 years old. And it was at Waskesiu. We were at it was at Peyton Beach, and he took me aside and we went down the beach, and he says, I got something for you. And he hands me this book, Emmett Fox, Sermon on the Mount. He says, I want you to have this. He says, I found this to be a great guide to living your life. And I took that to heart, and like that book really did change my life. It was a real opening for me on my own journey of, you know, trying to understand spirituality. And so, you know, and then maybe it was some 10 years later, I'm visiting family in Regina. I was on a road trip doing music, and I asked to borrow Mom and Dad's car to go to the drugstore or something, and I turned on the radio, and there's a CD player of Deepak Chopra. And so I said, oh, Dad, is that your CD? He goes, oh, yeah. He said, yeah, he's really cool. I'm really, you know. So, you know, we had this connection where we I was interested in spirituality, and I was reading a lot of these kinds of books. And so from time to time, we would actually have a really great conversation about stuff like that. And you know, his wonderful sense of humor was never lost on me either. I mean, I so appreciated that about him. I mean, there's so many stories I've shared with friends, classic moments like at a family reunion at Waskesiu in the summertime, and it's July, and all the extended family there. There's 45 of us. I can't remember what year it was. It was probably in the late 70s, early 80s. Uncle Roy was there, and it was just getting dark, and the Northern Lights came out. It was beautiful, incredibly vivid display of Northern Lights, and everybody was most people sitting around, most of my relatives are sitting around the campfire, didn't notice it yet, and I came and said, hey, come and check this out. So everybody rushed out onto the beach, and we're staring up, and Dad leans over to Uncle Roy, and I won't say what he said, because it was a little bit risque, but he said it just loud enough for everybody to hear it, and there was this eruption of uncontrollable laughter that went on for a good 10 minutes. I mean, it was absolutely hilarious. And Dad just had this sense of timing, and, you know, and like, I just have so many stories like that where his wonderful sense of humor would just completely get us all just laughing our heads off. And so, anyway, I'll finish with this last thought. I wanted to do a couple of piano songs that express my love for Dad, and just say a couple words. They're both about 4 minutes long, solo piano pieces. And one of them is a beautiful jazz kind of ballad that I first heard back in the 1990s by a band called the Yellow Jackets that I really liked. And I was inspired to write out the chart of this song from the cassette tape, but I never learned to play the song until this year. And then I found out a few weeks ago, I think it was Jim, my buddy Jim in the back there, I was telling him about this song that I wanted to play for Dad's memorial. And the song's called Pass It On. And Jim says, oh, you know that's the title of the biography of Bill W., one of the co-founders of AA. And I went, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And I hadn't read that book. I heard the slogan, you know, as pass it on many times at meetings, but I just never realized that it was actually the title of Bill W.'s biography. So this is the title of the song I'm going to play in a few minutes. And then the other piece is an original piece that came to me in a spontaneous improvisation many years ago on a grand piano, and I recorded it in cassette tape. And then over the years, I actually learned how to play it, like memorized the song. So it's called Celebration, and I thought it was quite appropriate given we're here today to celebrate Dad. So, thank you.
So I'm going to say my contribution while Paul gets settled in there. But before I say what I have prepared, I just wanted to thank everybody for their heartfelt messages. And in particular, Bill Castle. I wanted to just shout out that this rendition of our summer home cottage, Noah's Ark, on the altar here was painstakingly and beautifully rendered by Bill as a gift to both my mom and dad. And I wanted you all to know that, in case Perry didn't cover that. There is so much I could and want to say about my dad. And as I was writing this, I felt this enormous desire to paint a picture of him that would convey the depths of his character and the goodness he embodied. He loved his daughter. I felt loved. I was the quintessential daddy's little girl, made even more so by the fact that I was his only girl, the youngest of 3 boys, including a twin brother, Lindsay, who stole the spotlight completely. My placement in the family pecking order put me on the sidelines, in the audience. I was the cheerleader. I was the witness to the shenanigans and chaos that ensued in family life with all boys. Dad was a boy growing up among men in a man's world with relatively few girls and women to relate to, no sisters, and a largely absent mother. So being a man growing up among men, he did his best to find ways to relate to me. Such were the times. He did his best to find ways to relate to me. Though being a girl exempted me from being part of the fun on the hockey rink and on the football field. He and I took skiing lessons together when I was 17. And throughout my youth, he showed me the finer points of tennis, badminton, skating. But his heart was really all in playing hockey, football, table tennis with his boys, with my brothers. All that said, I'm a girl who knows how to throw a football. I know exactly how to wet my fingers right on the thread to get just the right spin so it flies straight and true. Dad taught me that. So Dad didn't always get it right. Who does? We suffer from this human condition. But Dad got it right in all the important ways. His integrity, the example he set in working a 12-step program of honesty, his ability to be accountable and take responsibility, and of working hard for continuous personal growth to lead a life of balance and finding moments of true serenity. Some of my earliest and fondest memories are waking up quite early to a quiet house. I'd come down the stairs and find my dad propped up on the sofa, draped in his blue velour hooded robe, meditating in quiet stillness. And I would stand for some time in front of him, marveling at how quiet and steady his breathing was. I've since adopted the same practice, and it has changed my life. This simple spiritual practice has changed my life. It served as an example to me, the kids in the family, and to our friends. Around the age of 10, my best friend Joe, who lived down the block from me, would often visit while Dad was busying himself in the kitchen, still in his blue robe, making homemade granola. Joe nicknamed him Morley the Monk. It was funny and fitting, and he was tickled by that. In his late 60s, Dad got very interested in the family tree, and just before his 70th birthday, I started to hatch a plan for a trip to Scotland. This trip served two purposes. One, to atone for the fact that I eloped when I got married. Imagine his only daughter skipping out of the ceremony. I stole his dream of walking his only daughter down the aisle. And two, we had never spent any time together alone. So I escorted Dad to Scotland, a trip which was a 70th birthday gift from the whole family. 2 weeks driving the tiniest of rental cars on super narrow roads on the wrong side. We traveled to Glasgow, to Inverness, tried to see Loch Ness, and then north to the Orkney Islands and back, exploring castles and finding the grave sites of our lineage to discover our ancestry. Those are some of my most cherished memories with Dad. In preparing for his celebration of life, I only just discovered the following passage written in his book of memories. He wrote, quote, "During the wait for our flight back to Canada in Glasgow, over a coffee in the airport, Lyell told his daughter about his impressions of their tour to Scotland. He told her the event was in the top 3 things that occurred in his life. Getting sober through AA was number 1, getting married and having a family number 2, and number 3 was their trip to Scotland. Both had a little cry," unquote. I think it's fair to say that I atoned for eloping. The other highlight of our relationship happened after I came into the program myself almost 8 years ago. The Saturday morning drives to Burnaby for our favorite AA home group meeting, followed by breakfast with family. Often Paul, Perry, Linda, Noah, Emily, Bristol, and later Lyndon would join in. We would pick Dad up from his Chilliwack home and off we'd go. We were like two kids on Christmas morning, giddy with the simple joy of getting to spend time together. We loved the home group meeting and then breakfast with family and beloved friends. On our way home, we reveled in our full hearts. We would frequently sit in silence, but it was more of a shared quiet. My heart was full, and I know his heart was too. We did that for almost 5 years together, and I never tired of making that trip. Finally, these last 8 months before Dad's passing, though punctuated with hardship and emergency room visits and long, long, unpleasant days in the hospital, gave us the time we needed to leave nothing unsaid. We each had our moments to say the things we needed to say, and his parting gift was the bringing of his family all together to support each other, to find love, gratitude, and solace in one another. Thank you, Daddy.
So at this point, I'd just like to invite any of you who wanted to share a story about Dad to come up, take a few minutes, and do that for us, please. Anyone?
Thanks, Dad. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Noah. I graduated at the top of my class from Harvard Medical School. On the weekends, I volunteer at the puppy shelter. And for those of you who do know me, zip it. Now, I tell that joke because my grandpa taught me two very important lessons. First lesson being, it's okay when you tell a joke to be the only one laughing. The rest is just icing on the cake. The second lesson, when going to a buffet, make sure you scope out the largest dinner plate you can find for when it's time for dessert. Thinking about my grandpa, some of my fondest memories, him coming, watching me play my sports, whether it was soccer, hockey, lacrosse, he was always up there in the stands cheering me on. He always told me he didn't have a favorite, he enjoyed all three, but I'll never forget the look in his eyes when I told him I was going to quit hockey. He asked me, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes, Grandpa, I'm not going to the NHL." On a serious note, as many of you know, we have a family reunion every 3 years at our cabin at Waskesiu Lake. And I'll never forget my grandfather pulling me aside. A few days before flying to New York to start my college career, he told me he loved me. He told me, he's getting old and anything can happen, and he just wants me to know that I'm loved. And being away at school when he passed, I felt a sense of closure hearing that when I was only 18 years old, and for that I'm grateful. He's always in my heart and I love him very much. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lyell Armitage. I'm the eldest grandchild of Don and Lyell. It's a pleasure to be here today. I felt it was kind of important for me to maybe say a couple words because my dad is not here to be able to do that. And this past year that went by, I had an incredible opportunity to come and spend some time in my professional life out here. And as time has gone by in the last few months, and even prior to that, I knew that I didn't get a very often opportunity to spend time with my grandparents. And so when the opportunity came up through my work in my professional life to come out here, I immediately jumped on it because time is extremely fleeting. And I am so grateful that the almost 7 months that I spent out here, that I got to do that, because it really encapsulates everything that I wanted in the end. And I feel like I got to have my cake and eat it too. So for me, that's what felt like closure. And I couldn't understand why every single time I left Chilliwack, I would sob the entire way back to Surrey. But I think it's because as I've gotten older, time hasn't stood still. And there was a lot of wrestling that I did with myself on those drives back to Surrey after visiting both of my grandparents. On a lighter note, I'm I'm very grateful for the relationship that I had with him, and I think one of the things that I was sitting here thinking of as everybody was speaking is gratitude. And what does that mean for me in terms of my relationship with him is that I think the biggest thing that I was the most grateful for was the journey of his recovery. Because without that, I don't think we can really truly have relationship with people. So my childhood could have looked a lot different than it did, and I'm grateful for that. He shared with me so much that I carry on into my adult life now, and so much of who I am and who I became is because of him. My love for sports, my love-hate relationship with golf. That's a work in progress. I remember the first time that I think he was taking me to the driving range in Waskesiu at the Lobstick Golf Course, just a short walk from our cottage. He really ultimately was trying to instill commitment and patience. And what that sounded like coming from him was when I was swinging the club at the ball, it was, you're trying to kill the ball. And that's kind of served as something that has a deeper meaning in my life now, because I think what he was actually trying to teach me was patience and pause. And that's something that I carry into my life now in moments that are very difficult or where I don't know what to do. I'll try not to kill the ball. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I have to catch a ferry, so I'm going to be quite quick and very succinct. Simply put, Lyell saved our family's life. He did an intervention on my mom when I was in my mid-20s. And Donnelly, I really want to honor you, because if it wasn't for you and Lyell, I don't think our family would have survived. And so I have great gratitude for that, along with the help that you gave me all those years. So I remember Lyell walking into our house. I think he had just come back from Vancouver, and he looked at, I think it was my dad and I were standing there, and he said, "When did your mom quit playing the piano?" And Dad and I looked at each other, and we said, "You know what? I don't remember the last time Mom played the piano." And he said, "Okay," and then he walked away. And then a few days later, Dad came up and he said, "We're doing an intervention on your mom, and Lyell's taking charge." And I said, "All right, okay, let's do it. Let's get her done." And he set up everything. He got her down to Mandan. He helped her, get into the spot. Everybody knows how he has saved so many people's lives and so many families' lives. And I just would have felt terrible if I had left without sharing that with everybody. And thanking you, Donnelly. I really love you. You have just been terrific for our family. So thanks. Okay, I'm gonna go.
My name's John, and I'm an alcoholic. And through the grace of God and the AA program and a man called Lyell Armitage, that's why I'm here today. December 1984, on a Monday, I left work early and came home, and I sat in the basement of my house, and I phoned this gentleman by the name of Donnell in Regina. And I started this BS story of this friend of mine that had an alcohol problem. Come to understand years later that only alcoholics will phone another alcoholic and start talking about alcohol. So. At any rate, during the conversation, I admitted to Don that it was me. What came out of his mouth to this day still fascinates me. This is Monday afternoon. He said, my son Brent and I have been trying to get to Vancouver for many months now to look for a new computer system for our dealership. He said, I'll be there Wednesday. Would you like to get together? And I said, yes. And he came to the house and he 12-stepped me in the traditional fashion. And one of the things he said, and I'm sure he probably got this from Lyell, was he said, you don't have to live this way anymore. And he said, this is the one time in your life where you do this for yourself. Not for the woman you're married to or your children, not for the cops if they're after you or the judge or any of that. You do this for yourself, which was the absolute best thing to say to a selfish, self-centered alcoholic. He said, you get sober and those around you become the beneficiaries of your sobriety. And boy, have we seen that here today. This is awesome. Before he left that night, he phoned. He said, I have a friend of mine, he said, that I know from Regina, and I think he's here in Vancouver. And guess who he phoned? Lyell Armitage. And he said, I got this fellow I'm working with, and he said, probably like to get to a meeting. And Lyell says, well, have him meet me in Coquitlam at the top of Marmont, a little old church house up there, for a Saturday morning step meeting. I've been going to it ever since. We changed churches because when the other one got torn down, then we had COVID, so that kind of put the kibosh on that. So we've gone on Zoom, and I was at the meeting this morning. The meeting's still going, 10 o'clock Saturday morning. So I just wanted to say thanks to Lyell. I know he's up there on a cloud. I've got to the point now where I can be a little humorous about some of this stuff. And if we're out having dinner and the waitress comes along and says, would you like a drink? Sometimes I'll say, no thanks. Sometimes I'll say, no thanks, I need to be home by Christmas. That works really good this time of year. Most of the time I just say, no thanks, it gives my wife a headache. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Emily. Lyell was my grandfather. And I'll just be really short because I feel like some of my, other family members have covered a lot of what I wanted to say, but I couldn't let this opportunity go by. I have so many amazing memories of my grandfather. Up at Waskasoo, with those Saturday morning breakfasts we used to have. I now regret I didn't make it to more of them, but when I did, he was always the guy sitting at the end of the table, chiming in every once in a while with a joke, or sometimes just, as people have said, telling it to himself in his head. All you'd know is that all of a sudden Grandpa would be laughing. And if you asked someone what was funny, he wouldn't tell you. He would just say, oh, I just told myself a joke, but he wouldn't tell you what it was. It was just for him. I think it took me until only a couple of years ago to really appreciate how many people's lives he touched. I mean, he was always just my grandpa, and I loved him, but I wasn't always aware of how many people he affected and the amount of people's lives who were changed by him. So that's really special to hear more about today. One sort of funny memory that comes to mind, my grandpa was always a guy really focused on his own values. Kindness, punctuality, which we sometimes clashed over just a little bit. And that could be amazing. That could also lead to some funny situations. I have a memory, and I'm not gonna probably relay it completely accurately, but of sitting around at a restaurant, one of these family meetings, out for dinner somewhere in Chilliwack, and we were trying, or more so my parents, were trying to convince him to get a cell phone. Because up until this point, he had never had one. This was only, maybe 8 or 10 years ago. And they were just trying to convince him to get a flip phone of all things, just so, he could be in contact. He was getting older, And to my recollection, he finally relented under one condition. He would, commit to getting a cell phone and to calling other people, but he made no commitment to ever answer the phone if somebody called him. That was too much. That was too much involved with the modern technology for him. So he stuck to his values on that, even to the detriment maybe sometimes. Yeah. Another value, like I said, was punctuality. He was always, into being on time and wanted everybody to be on time as well. But also, he wanted to be punctual when it came to wrapping things up. With those Saturday morning breakfasts, we are a chatty bunch. We like to drink coffee, sit at the table way too long. The waitress is probably giving us side eyes. But my grandpa always knew when the time was right. You would know that he was ready to go because he would take his keys out of his pocket in a way that they would like jingle loudly, I think on purpose, to kind of signal to everybody that, it's time to go. So we'd all look at each other and kind of laugh and say, okay, I think Grandpa's saying it's time that we wrap it up. Anyway, I'll always remember my grandfather for, the many amazing memories, the many jokes, the laughs, the special times, and I'm really thankful we get to honor him today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Grayson. I am the second oldest grandchild. I think it's challenging for me to, do this. I had a very good relationship with my grandfather through my childhood. He was always there. We always went over on Saturdays, and we'd have lunch and do whatever activity it was, whether it was ice skating or golf or just playing at the park, going sledding. There was always something we were doing, and I'm very thankful for that relationship that I had with him and my grandmother as well. I think that he taught me many things that I didn't necessarily have in my life. I didn't have a immense relationship with my father, and it was very nice to have that figure in my life. And although it wasn't for my adult life, I'm thankful for when it did happen. And thinking now, it's not a regret, but I wish that I had spent more time with him in my older life, in my older youth and my now adult life. I'm happy that I was able to be here in May and see my grandpa. And I think that it would be a different story now if I hadn't have seen him then. I think that was the first time I had seen my grandpa in maybe 4 years. And it needed to happen, and I'm happy that it happened. And I know that he's looking down on me right now. So, thank you.
All right, I'd like to thank everyone who made comments and shared. We're going to see the slideshow presently, I'm told. Yes, I'm getting the nod. So I think this, look at that, eh? See what I can do? All right, thank you.
Congratulations, a first-year manager of the Flin Flon Bombers, managing his team to the championship of Western Canada. The Flin Flon Bombers have won the Memorial Cup, and we're going to sign off here right now. This is the 45 plate of the Star game, the 7th, and the starting Yeah. Lindsay and Kara and Laura and Grayson. Hi, from Vancouver. Celebrating Christmas. We're thinking about you. Wow, wow. On something pretty. There's a picture.
Yeah, hold him up, Kira, in your arms like that, because that was what made such a great picture. Wouldn't that be something?
Let's go.
that saves a wretch like me. I once was lost, now I'm found. Was blind, but now I
I just wanted to thank everyone for coming, really. I'm absolutely amazed at the people that came today, and I know Lyell would have appreciated it so much. And I'm not able to say very much, as you can probably see. I can't get words out without crying. So I just am so glad that you're all here and that you've cared enough to come and say your goodbyes. So thank you again.
So to all of those who traveled here, in particular, I'd like to express my thanks on behalf of the family. Everyone from Calgary, everyone from Saskatchewan, John, Liz, Tim, Holly, Timothy, Paula, Leanne Redmond, who I'm not sure if she's left early or not, Colin from Victoria, thanks for coming, Grayson and Bristol as well from Regina, Bill Castle, thank you, Joel Sloan, Lyndon, my brother Paul, Nancy, and the people of Woodlawn, thanks for allowing us to have our celebration here. I just want to close with one final reading from the book of memories that my dad wrote, something that he had expressed that his mother had taught him his first prayer, and she would recite to him with him every night at bedtime when he was a kid. And it reads, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. His love be with me through the night and wake me with the morning light. And if I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take." Thanks again. So there's going to be some food for everyone. I think they're bringing those. Yeah, okay. So feel free to